Van Ness to the center of the mat, shakes hands with Andrew Clark of Rutgers, the number 19 seed, and we're underway. Van Ness winning 12-1 in the Big Ten consolation semifinal meeting. Van Ness in low on the leg. He has the left leg, pulls it in, now loses it. Now he's pulling in on the head, now pushing in on Clark here at the near edge. Clark trying to lower his level. Van Ness really working here on the head of Clark. Drops back in on that left leg, pulls in on the leg. Clark trying to push away here. Casey Cunningham and Nick Lee in the corner, along with Dr. Boscia in deep on that left leg. Here is Van Ness trying to pull back in on Clark. Clark trying to get off the edge of the mat. Van Ness trying to reach across and secure the takedown. No takedown yet. Van Ness now trying to pull Clark back in. Now he settles in on both legs, and he secures the takedown here on the near right edge. Shayne Van Ness takes a 3-0 lead. And Van Ness is in control as they go off the near side of the mat. Clark, a fifth-year senior from Collingswood, New Jersey, in Collingswood High School, where he was a New Jersey state champion. Clark is 23-13 on the season for the Scarlet Knights. He took 6th at the Big Ten tournament to earn an automatic bid here to the NCAA championships. He's now 5-10 against the NCAA tournament field this season. Again, Van Ness 12-2 against the tournament field, including that 12-1 win over Clark just a couple of weeks ago. Van Ness leading here 3-0, working out on the left side. A big sleeve over the right elbow of Andrew Clark as Van Ness really working here to try to turn Clark as he steps over now out on that left side. Clark fighting him off, and Clark now to a good base position. Van Ness kind of circling him back toward the center of the mat as they were right at the edge, and now Van Ness driving him forward toward the center as he comes out now on the right side. Clark now trying to scramble his way off the near edge, and does. We have 58 seconds left here in the opening period. I think, looked like Nick Lee signaled he wanted Van Ness to go ahead and cut him loose here. He has 1:06 in riding time advantage, does Van Ness, and he leads at 3-0. He sets up on the left elbow, drops down on the right ankle, and he is going to maintain control here. Now up and turning in for the escape is Clark, so the lead is 3-1. Van Ness back on the attack here at the edge of the mat, pulling in on the head, trying to circle in on that left side. Off the mat they go. Scott Goodale clapping his hands together, the Rutgers head coach, as they come back to the center. Van Ness and stepping forward, pressuring in, drops in on the left leg. Head inside single position here for Van Ness, trying to reach across for the far leg. 25 seconds left in the period. Van Ness at the edge, reaches across, gets control, and secures the takedown right at the edge. And now hanging on with his right toes inbounds is Van Ness. 10 seconds left in the period as they go off the far edge of the mat. Van Ness leading 6-1. He has 1:23 in riding time advantage. Again, 10 seconds left here in period 1. Penn State 10-0 in the first round, off to a 3-0 start here in round 2. Van Ness is leading the 4th bout of the night for Penn State, 6-1. Van Ness out on the right side, breaks Clark down and gets him bellied out here, and we will head to period 2 with Van Ness leading 6-1, 1:32 in riding time advantage on the board. Van Ness will defer his option to the 3rd. And Andrew Clark of Rutgers will take bottom to begin period 2, trailing 6-1. It'll be Van Ness setting up on the left elbow. Sitting out immediately is Clark. Van Ness quickly drives him forward here, breaks him down. Van Ness Trying to trap that left arm. He's got the right wrist, I think, as well underneath here. Van Ness trying to crank him over. Clark fighting him off. Van Ness trying to readjust out on the left side here. Pulling in on that arm. Clark continuing to fight him off. Van Ness still trying to circle back in here. Out on that right side as he comes up under the right arm now. Van Ness in control out on the right side. Leading 6-1, riding time advantage up to 2:15 and counting for Van Ness. We have 1:15 left to wrestle in the second period. Van Ness out on the right side trying to get Clark turned. We're going to get a stall warning issued against Clark underneath as Van Ness continues to work on top. One-on-one on that far wrist, trying to see if he can bar the arm here on the right side. Van Ness readjusting, coming over to the left side now with his hips. Van Ness in control with 45 seconds now left to wrestle here in the second period. Van Ness continuing to work, trying to pull in. He's got that leg hooked and will come off the near edge with 32 seconds left in period 2. 3:01 now in riding time advantage for Van Ness, who continues to lead 6-1. And Ness will set up on the left elbow. And Ness again breaks him down and just gets him flattened out here. As he continues to work. Out on the left side under the chin here comes Van Ness. Trying to see if he can get a turning combination together. So far cannot. Next up for Penn State will be Tyler Kasak. He is on deck right now on mat 6. In his second round matchup at 157 pounds against Cody Chittum of Iowa State. Van Ness and Clark will go to the third period. Van Ness with the 6-1 lead. And he chooses neutral here to start the third. Van Ness trying to work in here. Clamping down on the head is Clark. Van Ness still driving forward even as Clark continues to control the tie-up with a front headlock. We get a stalemate now with 1:22 left to wrestle here in the third. 6-1 Van Ness with the lead. It's really 7-1 with that riding time point assured. And Ness wanting another takedown here to secure the major decision. Trying to get in on the legs. Blocking him off is Clark. Van Ness driving forward here. Snaps down again on the head. Trying to drop in on that right side. Under a minute remaining now in the third. Van Ness picking up the pace here. Really working the head of Clark. Van Ness driving in here. Clark takes a step back. Now tries to take a step forward, and Van Ness comes barreling in, circles out on the right side and behind for the takedown. And Shayne Van Ness secures his third takedown of the match and extends the lead now to 9-1. And it's really 10-1 with that riding time point again long ago assured. He's going to close in here on 4 minutes in riding time advantage. Another stall warning now against Clark underneath, so that's another point. So now it's 10-1. Van Ness with the lead. He's over 4 minutes in riding time advantage. And he is going to ride out the final few seconds now of the third period. Shayne Van Ness with a dominating 11-1 major decision over Andrew Clark of Rutgers as he finishes with 4:11 in riding time. And Van Ness wins it 11-1. He is into the quarterfinals.